Hello and congratulations to this video course on how to boost your engagement in your WordPress site. This is video number 1, the introduction. So once you have gotten people to your website, then you need to keep them there. So if you think about it, you work really hard to do traffic generation, social media, search engine ranking. You get them to your website and they leave and you don't know why. You might have some content, but you don't know why they're not interacting. You don't know why they're not commenting and all that. So engagement is crucial because the more you can get people to engage with your website, the more they will grow closer to knowing you, to liking you, and ultimately trusting you. Once you get all this figured out and you get the engagement, then you can turn them into visitors, into subscribers, and build your email list. So that's essentially the ultimate goal here, because once you get them onto your email list, then you can build a further relationship. And then of course you can sell your products and your services. So the big question is how? How do you get them to stay on your website and get fully engaged? Well, first things first, the way we've laid this video course out is to make sure that the speed of your website is fast, because a lot of times people overlook this factor and they go straight to the engagement plugins or they go straight to the content and they don't know why people leave. Well, if you think about the root cause of it all is because the speed of your site needs to be fast. And that's kind of a no-brainer. So attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. And that is why you need to look at that first. So once you've gotten their attention, you got to keep them engaged, which is the key. So in video number 2, we're going to talk about how you can learn how to test the spot. In video number 2, you'll learn how to test your speed of your WordPress site, because obviously before you need to speed it up, you need to know what your status is. So if you happen to test the speed of the site and it happens to be a big A+, then you're good to go. You don't have to do anything. But of course, on the other side, if you find out that it's an F or D, you need to move it up a few letters up to A or B or C, if C as the max. But generally speaking, you want to do A or B. And you'll see what I mean in just a second when we test it out in video number 2. And of course, video number 3, we'll talk about once you know your speed, how do you actually speed it up? Well, there are 2 factors here. There are plugins, and then there are the way that your web hosting company has set your server up for your WordPress site. Get more into that later on. But the general idea is that there's certain plugins out there that will help you speed it up. And then there are certain plugins out there that may help you a little bit, but don't help you as much as the other ones. So this is based on our tests, so that way you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Video number 4, we'll talk about how you can speed it up by analyzing your web hosting setup. So like I said, some web hosting companies have set up the servers to handle regular sites that are not WordPress. And then some are WordPress only. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. Video number 5 is when we start to talk about the hacks. So video 5, 6, and 7 will be hack 1, 2, and 3. So hack number 1 is all about this. So if you think about when somebody comes to your website after they look at the speed and everything is fast loading on all that, they think about, okay, I'm searching for something specific. They might find it, but then they're going to look more for that. So in other words, they search for XYZ, they want more of XYZ, right? So how can you make it so that it's going to be easier for them to find that information, such as related posts? What kind of plugins can you use to help you with that? So because we've tested things out over the years, we figured out which plugins work well the best in these cases. And of course, when we move on to video number 6, which is hack number 2, we'll talk about getting more people engaged in the comments area. So after they like your content, then the next step after that is they're going to want to comment and engage with you. Now, if they don't see a lot of people engaging with you, they might not actually enter anything in there. So you want to make sure that it's not just user-friendly, but it's fun. So we'll show you plugins that you can use for that as well. And of course, video number 7, we'll talk about the last hack, which is hack number 3, and that is getting people to interact with your website. Now, although we're talking about interaction as a whole, this covers mainly getting pieces of areas of your website, such as polls, such as maybe ads, such as forums, such as little areas of your website that you can still get them to interact. You can actually think of these as mini transactions to get them closer to liking and knowing and trusting you. All right. So that would be the next step after the comments. So these 3 areas are actually very often overlooked, but they're very, very important to getting people closer to wanting to subscribe onto your email list. So after this, of course, we move on to video number 8. And by this point in time of the sequence and of the phase, people are now aware of you. They are aware of what you have to offer, and they want to know more. Maybe they want to buy from you, or they just want to take that relationship further. So in video number 8, we'll talk about how to turn your visitors and get them to turn into subscribers and ultimately build your email marketing list. So the email marketing list is the asset that you want to have at the end of the day. The blog is important as well, but the email marketing list is extremely important because that is what is going to help you make more money in the long run. All right. So with that said, let's move on to video number 2. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 2, and you will learn how to test the speed of your WordPress site. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so there are 2 tools that we like to use that are free. You don't have to invest any money at this stage, and they're called gtmetrix.com. So the first one is gtmetrix.com. All right, so the second one is actually offered by Google. So if you go to thinkwithgoogle.com/feature/test my site. Again, that's thinkwithgoogle.com/feature/test my site. All right, so this actually tests the mobile site limits or the mobile speed. So you want to have an idea of how fast it is based on the desktop and the mobile site. All right, so that's why we use both of these sites. So going back to this site, what I did as an example is I went to Google, I found a website that is an e-commerce store. And that's what we're going to use in this test. So obviously in your case, you're going to want to enter your WordPress site here. Okay, so I did a search and I found a website that sells scuba gear. And it's got a huge blog with tons and tons of content, with a lot of reviews, a lot of images, and all of that. Typically, anytime you have a WordPress site that has a lot of images, that in itself will slow you down. So we'll talk later on how to speed things up using those plugins and other ones as well. Now, if you go back to gtmetrix.com and you enter the URL of your website here, and you click on test your site, it'll begin to analyze your website. All right, so we're going to pause this video and let it analyze it, and I'll see you when it's done. Okay, so as we can see here, GTmetrix has given this website a C, which is not horrible, but it could be improved. So if you're at a C or even a B, the goal for you is to try to get at least a few steps better. All right, so if you're a C, try to get to B or A. If you're a B, try to get to A. Or if you're an F, try to get to at least C or B. All right. So if we take a look at GT metrics and see why they say what we say, you can see that it says page speed. It's got an A on a lot of things, and it's got a B on a few things, but it's got an F on several things. So what you want to do is you want to take a look at the F. All right, so we got to click this here. It says serve scaled images. The following images are resized in HTML or CSS. Served scaled images could save a certain amount. Okay, so what they're saying is the images on the site could actually utilize a image optimization WordPress plugin. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. And if we scroll down, it says enable keep alive. If you click that, the little arrow, it says the host uses Amazon ad system. You should enable keep alive. It serves the following sources. So if you don't know what that means, you can just simply click what this means and it'll tell you what that means. So in terms of practical application, we can definitely see that this site owner has a lot of A's on everything, but they could still optimize their images. All right. So we'll actually cover a lot more detail later. So we're not going to assume that you are the same as this website. All right. So we're going to assume that you might have gotten an F, which is fine. So we're just going through here to help you realize what the tool is saying. So this one says, okay, FFF, add expires headers. So that's actually just a caching thing to deal with cache, which we'll talk about later. It says use a content delivery network. So they're not using a content delivery network such as Cloudflare or MaxCDN and all of that. We'll talk about that in the next video as well. But if we just go through and take a look, you can see this one got a C. It says minified JavaScript and CSS. So a lot of this can actually be done via a caching plugin, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So if we click on waterfall, we can see what is actually loading. So when you go to a specific website, certain elements of that website load first. So what they're showing you is what elements are taking the longest amount of time to load. So if you speed these elements up, you can save a lot of time and speed things up. All right, so let's go to timings, page loads, timings, video, and history. So these are actually premium things and services that you can actually upgrade to use. But for the most part, we just use page speed, Y slowed, and waterfall. All right. Now, oftentimes, the GT metrics system will say, okay, this is a WordPress site, and we'll give you information on how to speed up a WordPress site. If you click on here, it'll tell you how to optimize a WordPress site. So if we go ahead and do that now, it gives you a step-by-step guide on how to optimize your WordPress site, but we're going to cover a lot of this in the next video. So that's what you could use. And of course, if you go to thinkwithgoogle.com, you can also enter that domain here. Okay, it says your mobile site speed is about 5.5 seconds in the United States on 4G. So 4G is fairly fast. So the rating that Google gives it is slow. And it says monthly trend slowing down. And we scroll down, we can get an idea of more detail, such as get custom fixes. It says page speed, avoid an excess DOM size. So you can actually, well, like what we talked about earlier, optimizing images. All right, so for the most part, this is what Google sees. Now, bear in mind that even though we're talking about engagement and how to speed the site up, you want to bear in mind that Google looks at this as well. And because they look at this, they are going to oftentimes base your ranking on your site speed. So the faster your site loads, the better you will get ranking, right? And the more engagement that you get, the higher ranking that you will get as well. All right. So now you know the 2 tools that you can use for free. Let's move on to the next video and talk about how to speed up your website by utilizing certain plugins.